I hope that's the first thing that shows up is me being like,
Better than me stretching my face.
all right, well, it looks like we are officially live in the Facebook group. So woohoo! It
Woo!
is, yeah, it's day 2 of Spotlight on the Shadow Seekers. For anybody who didn't get to catch it yesterday, this is a week-long series that I'm doing where I'm interviewing people who've gone through both Create Your Light Academy and Radiate Your Light Academy to talk about their experience in the programs and to actually go through where they're at, why they chose shadow work. And then we're just going to kind of take whatever curveballs this conversation just throws at us, because it doesn't need to be so formal. So today I'm excited to have on my lovely witchy Philly girl, Jacky Giosso. I'm so obsessed with you. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we were just talking about something really funny before we started. So I feel like let's start there and just like continue that conversation. We were talking about how like before getting into the spiritual world, we like loved sports and we were so into it. And Jacky's wearing a 76ers jacket right now. And then like since diving into spiritual stuff, it's like it took a weird curve. So talk about it. What were you saying before?
Yeah, like I just well, you pointed out my jacket, and I used to love sports, and it's not that I hate them or anything right now. But I was so into sports growing up. I had a lot of guy friends, so we played basketball all the time, watch sports. My dad, I always watched the Eagles with him, and we beef with my mom because she was, Cowboys fan. So you can just imagine my household. So, yeah, exactly. So, and then with my husband, I took on that with him, and I just really enjoyed sports. I mean, I remember the one time when we first got together, he was like, I'll give you $100 every Sunday. You can go shopping. I'll watch sports. And I was like, well, what if I want to watch sports with you? He's like, wait, you do? And I'm like, yeah. So, we bonded on that. I would play the pools with him and all that. I would win. It was fun to do. And now I'm just like so turned off by it because, when you awaken, you see like the bigger picture of things, not that it's not entertaining, and all that, but it's just, you see the bullshit behind everything. And it's just kind of, you don't want to spend your time doing a lot of the things you used to, and sports is one of them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like once you kind of see how like it changes things. It's like all of a sudden the stuff that you used to really enjoy, you can see as being numbing, or it's like your brain kind of shuts off. And when you think about how much time we used to dedicate to things like that, like sports and even binge watching TV shows, like I used to be obsessed with Bravo shows. I knew every Real Housewife and all the drama, and it's just bullshit, right? It's just complete bullshit.
It is.
And it can be hard for the people around us when we're going through stuff like spiritual awakenings to feel like they understand what it is that we're going through, because all of a sudden stuff that we used to bond over, we can't anymore.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's just like, and you mentioned like that was something you bonded with your husband with. That's something I bonded with. And, and sometimes I don't mind it, but like if I'm just sitting here like doing my thing, and like it almost irritates me, some of the things that like people watch, and things that would never bother me. And I almost feel like guilty, and then part of it like is sad too, because it's like you're shedding a part of yourself, and it's like, well, what other human things can I do? Like how can I bond with these people that I've known my whole life and that like these things, and they there was a lot of things that I liked growing up that people didn't like anyways, so it kind of like makes you feel even more of kind of an outcast a little bit, but I still respect that that's things that they like though, and I will entertain it to an extent, but I just don't vibe with things like that anymore.
Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest things anybody goes through with the spiritual awakening. I saw somebody post something yesterday, and this is someone I really respect in the spiritual community. So I always keep an open mind whenever she posts something, especially if it triggers me. And one of the things that she said was that when you're going through spiritual awakening, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to feel like loss. It doesn't have to feel like a shedding. But for me, it did.
Yeah.
It felt like all those things. It felt like a loss of a lot of the people that I had really strong connections with, because we stopped having really intense connections the way we did before. And they're still around. It's just different. I think one of the things that I was thinking is you just have to find a new way to tether yourself to this world. Like you have to find new ways of creating those connections and relating, because it's going to shift. There's no way it won't. I know you feel like that too.
Absolutely. I literally just thought that in my head when you said that, because, you know, regardless of having like awakenings or evolving, I feel like even on the like mundane area, you kind of shed regardless, like as you grow, you know, there's things that you just don't, you know, feel connected to anymore in general. That's just the human experience. So you either, you know, if you want to shed people with that, then you shed people with that, or you just find things as adults or whatever is in this, you know, process or where you're at in this life to come in on, you know, because, you know, sometimes we don't give people enough credit. Like, you know, there's some people that are in communities like, well, they wouldn't like that, or that's my thing. Like, they're going to think I'm weird, or, but they might really enjoy it. They just don't know about it. So, like, you know, I feel like we don't give other people, well, not, I'm not saying me per se, but like people don't give other people a chance to, you know, like, because there is a lot of toxic stuff in like any community. And that's why I don't even like saying like spiritual community sometimes, because then it almost sounds like a cult, you know, like I don't, it does. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, me and my spirit. And it's literally like, it's just how we're supposed to be. Like, you know, and things I like still like the same shit I always liked. It's just I know more, I understand more. I understand why I've always liked these things and the connections with things. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like I sold my soul off and, you know, I got to sit around and with these people and be in a cult. It's just I found myself, you know?
Yeah. I think that's something a lot of people are scared of when it comes to engaging with spiritual stuff across the board, where it's like, I don't want to change. I don't want to stop being me. I don't
Yeah.
want to lose people, or even like, I don't want to feel like it's a culty vibe. I love that you
Hmm.
feel that way, because I totally agree that we have to be really careful to like keep our feet on the ground and like, yeah, but
Absolutely.
also to learn new things, but it doesn't mean that you have to like shun the old in favor
No,
of the new. That's crazy.
it is crazy. And it's kind of like the opposite of the way you're supposed to be. And we're no better than nobody else. We don't, it's just where your mind just becomes more open to things. It's not, you're not better than anyone. You're not ahead of anyone. It's just, you know, you just know that there's a bigger, there's more than this is the way you just, you know, it's not, you know, you have a purpose, you understand the hard things are kind of there for a reason, whether, you know, it's a hard pill to swallow or not. And, you know, we just patiently wait for all our friends and families to kind of want to get to that level. But it's not religion. It's not like, you know, where you have to follow these rules. It's just literally being yourself and the way you're always supposed to be. Just, you know, just being
Yeah.
happy.
How did shadow work get you to that point? Did it help contribute to that, or what was that like for you?
Absolutely. So shadow work, I like heard the name, but didn't really know what it was. And I just got to a point in my life. So, you know, it was 10 years since my dad passed. And obviously I went through other traumas in life, but you know, that was my big one. And I feel like it was weird. It was like a roller coaster. So like when it first happened, like, you know, I'm numb. And then some time goes past and I push that down because I felt like I had to take care of other people or I couldn't show my emotions. So, you know, I was okay. And then I get to a point where it started bubbling to the surface again and I became rageful. I went through like a summer, my friends will probably laugh when they hear this, where I just like wanted to fight everyone. I was fist fighting people. I was getting drunk. I was just like, I just, you know, whatever. Then I shoved it down again. And then it got to a point where a couple years ago, where I felt like I probably should have been okay. I wasn't. And I was going to work and I was crying to my friend Dawn all the time, where I just like didn't want to be here anymore. And I'm like, why am I like this now? You know, like this is how I should have been when it first happened, but it was just from pushing it down. It's like it was like, bitch, I have nowhere to go now. Like you need to open me and you need to deal with this. And I would just cry and I'm like, there's nothing here for me. Like there's nothing here for me. And I always like growing up, like wanted to help other people. And I'm like, who are you helping? You can't even help yourself. Like it's pathetic. Like I was not nice to myself. And I got pregnant and I was like, which was a complete surprise. Like I was home birth control. Like I was like, what the hell's going on? You know? And both my father and Sean's father had passed. And, you know, we get blessed with this boy. And like it just hit me. And I'm like, I can't do this, you know? And like I felt like he was given to me because I felt like my dad kind of knew, like, well, she's not gonna lose her shit when she has him. So like here's your gift and get your shit together.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, I got to do something. And my friend mentioned you. She followed you. I don't know how she came about you. And she was just like, I'm a little freaked out by shadow work, but I don't know. She's like, but it's definitely your vibe. And as soon as I went on your page, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what I need to do. Like this, I found my little niche in the corner of the world.
Isn't it funny how the universe just kind of like drops stuff in weird ways on our path? Like your son, like, here you go. Like, now you're not going to repress this anymore. You're going to deal with it.
No.
Here you go.
And like, it was like, they knew that I was not, because I like literally was not well. Like I like probably, I don't even want to know what would happen if it wasn't for him. And, you know, but it made me, what's important to say is though, I didn't just do it for him. Like he made me want to do it for myself, because that's like the most important thing is like, if you try to live for other people, or you try to, you know, people who are addicted try to get sober for other people, that's why it never works. Like you come first, you have to do it for yourself, and then everyone else falls in line.
It's so true. You have to do it for you, but sometimes other people can be the catalyst to make you look at yourself and go,
exactly.
okay,
It was
I'm
like a
ready.
mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mirror, and it makes you feel like you want to go there. I'm so
Absolutely.
glad that you talked about repression, because I feel like that is like the core piece of shadow work that maybe people don't realize. It sounds like a scary thing, like, oh, we're going into the shadows. It sounds kind of ominous and weird. And I definitely attract like more of like the people who are into that kind of like witchy, spiritual, dark stuff.
Yeah.
And that was always me too. Like my hair's naturally black. I dye it blonde for past life reasons, which we've talked about. And it's like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, on a lot of ways it is that. And in other ways, it really is just the normal part of our lives. We all repress. We all bury stuff. We all push it down and push it down and push it down. And eventually it's going to get to a point where you can't push stuff down anymore. Like you just, you're not able to do it. Your body physically cannot hold any more trauma. And so if you have a big thing happen, like the loss of a parent, especially in the way that you face that, it takes up a lot of space, cognitively, emotionally, and physically. It takes up a lot of space. And then, which means that you just have that much less room for other stuff. And so your cup is already full. Anything else is going to make it run over. And that becomes a problem. And that's why repression is so bad, because anything you're pushing, it just accumulates and builds on top of it.
And it has to go somewhere.
Exactly. Yep. It shows up no matter how you try to push it down, eventually it catches up to you. And it shows up in weird ways, like in anger and getting into fights, which actually happened for me too. I used to get into fights, and maybe it's just a Philly thing.
I was like, it definitely has to do with it. I mean, it might not be like the full thing, but we are, you know, product of our environment.
But it's important to know that that happens for everybody, and it can show up in weird ways. Like maybe it showed up as being angry and fighting for us, but for somebody else, it could be like random bouts of depression where it hits out of nowhere and it's like you can't get out of bed for 2 weeks. Or it could be like spontaneous tears where it's like, I don't know why I'm crying, and it just keeps showing up for me, and it keeps showing up over and over and over again, and I don't know how to get out of it. So when you started doing shadow work, what was that like for you to kind of go like, you know what, let's face this, let's deal with what happened and go for it?
Well, first of all, I got to a point where I knew that I had like no other choice but to handle it. You know, like over the years, people were like, well, why don't you do counseling? And I was just like, I ain't talking to no one. Like, I'm fine. I got this. Like, that was me my whole life, you know, my little corner of my room. And I just dealt with shit. And, you know, when it got to the point where I was like randomly crying, and my autoimmune diseases were like, you know, just the symptoms I was getting, it was just horrible. And I was like, I felt like the doctors weren't helping me. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? And even sometimes like my blood work would be okay. Like, I mean, it'd be like my normal, you know, autoimmune stuff, but like the way that my body was manifesting things, you would have thought like I was dying almost. So I'm like, the things that would come on my body, and I'm like, what is going on? So, you know, when I did shadow work and I started to like realize how the psychology of it, how, you know, your mind suppresses things, but your body holds on to it. And, you know, how it's not just this life, it's lifetimes of stuff. And, you know, just how things tie together, like it made sense to me. Like my trauma was literally growing and like from inside out. And like it got to a point where it had nowhere to go. So it was starting to manifest any way that it could on me. And it was like showing me like, hey, deal with me. Like, this is not good, you know? And when I started diving into, you know, the shadow work and the journal prompts and the past lives, it was just amazing to see, you know, patterns that I carry on, you know, it was empowering because I saw people I was in past lives who were bad as shit, you know, and they were brought to me now to show me like, hone in this power, like you're not powerless, like you are a bad bitch, like you have a life to live, like, you know, just do it. And it was amazing. And I feel like a lot of people, when they do their awakenings right away, it's like, okay, I have to be positive, I have to be light, you know, I'm honing all this thing, I'm holding this ground, which is great. And some people can do that for the most part if they haven't had traumatic lives. But the people like us who went through severely traumatic things, we can't do that. We have to do the shadow work first, you know, the deep shadow work. So I was, you know, it's the love and light wasn't how you can start it for some people, you know, it's the ultimate goal. But it really shook me. It did. Like it really did.
I think people don't realize how much the physical and the mental are connected, because there is a direct tie within the mind and body. And we're not taught that in school. It's not like you go to health class and they're like, hey, when you're experiencing anxiety, you might also notice that your heart rate picks up and that you have difficulty sleeping, your appetite changes, bowel movements change, you have foggy thoughts. And until you learn that, you might not even realize how connected they are. And talk about depressing, when you let that build up over time and the physical ailments keep building up and getting more intense, eventually your body actually starts attacking itself. Like your immune system starts to fight itself. And that's where autoimmune issues come in. Things like MS, things like lupus, it's like cancer, like I had, where the body actually has to do something and it starts to fight, but it fights itself.
Yeah.
So for you, I know that that's been a huge piece of the puzzle, especially this idea that like doctors don't understand. And one of my best friends is a doctor at a prominent hospital in Pennsylvania, and he was not given one class on mental health, not given one class on nutrition. Isn't that insane? It's unbelievable.
And it's the two most important things. I mean, it's the key to everything.
We are what we think and we are what we eat, and that manifests in our bodies so much, which is why the work that you do is so powerful, because you understand this connection in a way that maybe other people don't. You've seen it from both sides, both as a practitioner and also as somebody who lives it. So you can bridge that gap really beautifully.
Absolutely. And it just shows you the way not the earth, but like how things really are made up, and how, you know, we are lied to our whole lives. Because I mean, you can't get rich off of healthy people, so you can only get rich off of keeping people sick and blind. So that's why they won't tell you these things. And, you know, God bless and kudos to all the doctors out there. They're amazing people, but they're missing this vital information. Some of them understand it, but some of them don't. And that's why they still have these patients that come back with autoimmune diseases and stuff. And they're basically, you know, saying, well, you can never be cured, or, you know, basically we're just making you comfortable. Well, I'm sorry, at like 20 something to 30 years old, like I'm not hearing that, you know, that you're going to tell me that I'm just going to be comfortable for the rest of my life. Like, no, you know, off of meds, like it's just not the way it's going to go. And I didn't learn that stuff in school either. I mean, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. So basically they just told us don't have sex before you're married. That's all they really cared about. I didn't hear about much anything else, you know? So that definitely wasn't part of my curriculum. And it's just reading these books about, and for the people who like are like, well, I don't believe in spirituality. Well, the science psychology version, I mean, it's right there in front of your face. It's legit that what you have in your mind literally, you know, manifests in your body. It's so if you don't want to go for the spiritual route, we'll go for the science of it, because it's legit.
Yeah, there's a couple of books and researchers that I like to recommend to people who are really on the science side and want to see the proof and the evidence. Easiest one, I have it sitting right next to me, is The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel. Yeah, because he actually talks about that connection. But there's another person who I love even more. His work is Dr. Stephen Porges, and he does polyvagal theory. And it is that connection between the brain and the body and exactly how it manifests and what it does. And again, all these things are just like little pieces of the puzzle, because then there's other people like Dr. Tom O'Brien, who deals with the fact that everything that we eat impacts the way that we feel. So like gluten can cause infertility, and we don't know that. And dairy can cause issues with your thyroid. if your body is attacking that part of the immune system. But we don't know that. And everybody's given little pieces of information. Nobody's given everything. Therapists don't know everything. Doctors don't know everything. We don't know everything. And our job, I feel like in so many ways, is to just collect as much of this information as we can so we can figure it out. And it's a pain in the ass to do that, to try and pull all these pieces together. But I feel like shadow work's cool for that reason, because the stuff that's important to you and your journey in this lifetime is going to come through to you in shadow work. Whatever is most important for you to see, you will see, because that's what your guides are going to show you, period, every single time.
Absolutely.
And so you can pull out all the extraneous stuff and focus on what's important for you. So for you, it's been past lives, right? That's been such a huge piece of
Yeah, I love the past lives. And it is true, because, you know, we're all maybe collectively have the same end game goal in mind, but we're all going to kind of get there in different ways. And even us who are, you know, doing the shadow work to get people there, we're still going to get different. We're not all going to get the same information completely. Like there's things you're going to pull in, and then there's things that I'm going to pull in, and then we're going to work together to deliver it, because, you know, there's things that's just our roles. Like there's areas that we're all kind of supposed, like the puzzles, to bring them together. So, which is fun to see too, because there's just so many ways to like obtain this information, whether it is the past lives, meditation, the Akashic records, you know, just communicating with the different realms. And they just have so much information, and they're like literally waiting on bated breath for people to just be like, okay, I'm ready to listen, you know, don't be an asshole. So they're just waiting there, and it is beautiful, because we do have ignored them for so long. And there's things that happen in life where, you know, you've had those moments and where you're like, whoa, like that couldn't have been a coincidence. Like, no, it wasn't a coincidence. Like they're literally screaming for us to just listen, you know, and they're amazing for the things they help us with. They really
Absolutely. are. Yeah, it's all just whatever it is that we need, and they give us weird ways to get to that stuff. So when you were in the Clarity Club, we're in the Clarity Club right now. When you were in Create Your Light Academy and going through the meditations, can you actually speak to the fact that you saw something so different than the other women who were going through it with you, and how we dealt with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, you're all doing the same meditation, you know, whether it's, you know, someone, we had like womb space ones, you know, all different like style meditations that you would do, and then we would all, you know, explain what we saw at the end, and it was like always like this bizarre shit, and it was all different, and which is crazy what the mind picks up. And when you first do it, you're like, there's no way that I saw that, you know, like you're just kind of like, okay. But the things that people pick up and how different it is, it just, there's no way to like deny the truth in it. And I mean, the things that I would see, so what was the first one? So the first one was like a trauma one that we all did. And I went back to my house like the day my dad passed, and like, which was weird, because in my meditation I saw, like, it was like that day, and I saw these like, I said, you're going to open up a door to your trauma, and I opened up my front door and like saw like ambulance and stuff. And that morning when I opened up the door, I seen like daddy long legs in like real life in my door. And that was significant, one, because daddy, you know, the name, and two, like I used to collect them when I was younger and like let them crawl on me like a little creep, and you know, me and my dad would go in the woods and go looking for daddy long legs and stuff. So to have like that meditation, and then like what happened earlier, like it was just proof that like there was something bigger to this, and like, you know, you are seeing what you're seeing, like you are healing. And you know, going back to my first past life when I was the witch and stuff, you know, that was, we found out like my brother in that life was really my youngest nephew. Like
that still gives me goosebumps.
I know, it was crazy.
And life session.
It was wild. And like for you to confirm that, because you knew too, you're like, is there someone in your life now that like is in this? And well, obviously worded a little better than that. And I was like, one of my nephews. And and I said my younger, like we said it like the same time, and I'm like, yeah, my younger nephew. which explains a lot with like how connected we are in this life, and how, you know, he was so attached to me growing up and like the horror, and he would be like, yeah, Jack, you want to watch Chucky, you know, and like I'd be like, okay, you know, and he would draw me pictures, and it just, the things that happen, some people might shove off like, oh, you know, but it's mind blowing, like the
Yeah.
things you discover. It really is.
You can feel it in your gut. Like, you
Oh
know that
yeah.
it's true on this soul level. And it's like nothing can shift that away. You know it,
Mm-mm.
you feel it in your bones. And when you
Nothing like
have
that.
that knowing, that understanding, it does shift things so much for you in like a 3D kind of perspective. Like your world changes afterwards. You can't look
It,
at things the same.
no, I couldn't. And it was just, there was no going back after that. And, you know, I always, growing up, like loved witchy stuff and, you know, the witchcraft. And I've mentioned before, like I'd be like 8 years old, like making love potions in my room with like stuff from my garden. And,
Mhm.
you know, I felt like, you know, for Halloween, like I was a witch a few times, and like some of my friends were princesses. And, you know, a lot of people liked witches growing up, but I feel like they grew out of that, whereas like I didn't. So having that like confirmation was like everything for me. And I was like, and I almost felt like I had to honor, you know, the times I was witches in other lives. And, you know, people burned me for it because they didn't agree with it. And now it just wanted me to be like, you know, I'll do whatever I want, you know, like for them and for myself, you know. So
That's why this lifetime's so cool, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
I think nowadays it's awesome because spirituality is so mainstream. Like, so many celebrities talk about
Mhm.
having shamans. Like Gwyneth Paltrow uses Shaman Direct. They're like besties, and she goes to him
Love it.
constantly. And they talk about the Akashic records and going to see mediums and crystals, like Heidi Montag of all people, and Spencer Pratt, who what the fuck is that? But like, it's so mainstream and it's so normalized in a way that
It
we haven't
is.
ever seen before. Even as recently as us growing up, where like my parents
Mhm.
were terrified of all the things that I was into, and I had to hide my
Yeah.
witchy books and the things that I was interested in. And I've considered myself to be kind of a pagan since I was very young, and that was
Mhm.
something I couldn't share with anybody. It had to be hidden. Whereas now my daughter comes home from school and goes, "We learned about the spring equinox and we're
Which is
doing all
awesome.
these like rituals." I'm like, fuck yes. Like, it's
I
just a
know.
different world now. It's so different. And we're lucky to be a part of that.
It is. We are very lucky. And I was lucky growing up where my parents didn't show me for anything. They definitely rolled with my uniqueness, but it wasn't their thing either. Like more my dad, he would like, thought it was cool, but you know, my parents never showed me. And like I remember, you know, the one time, every time I like saw a scary movie, like I had to reenact it, like put, you know, messages around, like I know what you did last summer. And then the one time my parents came like running upstairs because they heard boom, boom, boom. And I'm like on my bed like this. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just watched The Exorcist. And they're like, okay. And they were like, we're gonna go back downstairs. I'm like acting like I'm like possessed in my bed. And they're just like, we're just gonna
Okay,
shut the door
Jackie.
now. But I had to act out like everything I saw. You know, now when I look back, I'm like, okay, definitely probably like my parents probably called the priest one or two times, but
At the very least, they threw some holy water outside your door.
seriously, oh my god, it
It's
just.
hilarious.
But I had to do that. I mean, I even called my dad the one time from like in the closet, and I was like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And I was like, "I have your daughter," and he was like, "What?" He's like, "Jack," and he's like screaming. I'm like, "Dad, you don't know by now? I'm kidding."
I just watched the same movie 1,000 times. You know what I'm doing.
I know. I'm like, come on, Dad, like just go along with it, will you?
I'm having a scream moment. Come on. So, with all that being said, and like how different things are now, how do you feel after doing shadow work? Like, I know for me, one of the things I felt before doing shadow work was like, I was really anxious, I was depressed, I physically had a lot of symptoms, and afterwards, it is very rare for me to feel thrown by anything. Things that would have sent me into a tailspin before, maybe feel like filled up with rage, hit me like this much. Now, what about you? How do you feel after it?
I definitely notice a big difference. I mean, there's areas I still obviously work on. You know, I have lifetimes of disease and like things that I need to clear from my body, but just in 8 months, like the difference that I personally know, and even some of my friends have noticed, is like unbelievable. I was having, I have less symptoms with my autoimmune disease. I feel better most of the time. I still obviously have my days where I still feel pain and I'm fatigued, but compared to the way I used to feel, it's like unbelievable. Even when I would have symptoms, like, and I got my blood work like some months back, my blood work was actually really good compared to how it used to be. So, my body's still purging, but my blood work and stuff was getting better. My mind feels clearer than ever. I actually have like hope for myself and know where I want to go. Do I still get triggered and want to probably end up on the show Snap sometimes? My husband pisses me off. Absolutely, but I've learned even more so recently, like, to look at it from a bigger picture of like, there's reasons why he's acting that way or someone else is acting that way. And I take that into consideration and I'm like, all right, do you really need to like pop off right now? Or can you breathe and like walk away? So like,
Huge.
I'm getting better with that.
Yeah. And all the meditations that we do are recorded. So you can do them over and over and over again. So that purging that we do during Create Your Light Academy, it doesn't end there. It keeps going. And we have this strong support network of people who are like sisters now.
Yeah.
And
which is like the best part.
It really is.
It is
like one of those things that I was talking about this with Colleen yesterday, where like I never intended it for that to be like the main thing. And I feel like now for me, that's the main thing, because when
Absolutely.
you do this, you do this really intense work with people and you go to these depths that it's like, it just forces you to really open yourself up and be raw and vulnerable with people. And you can't help but not like totally fall in love with all the people that you're doing it with, and just know like they're always going to be there for you no matter what.
Absolutely. And they're the people that you are in the group with are put there at the same time as you for many reasons, which we have found out we've had past lives together. It's not a coincidence.
Never.
And when you're going through this, a lot of times the closest people around you don't understand. So, having that extra support and people going through what you're going through for you and, vice versa, it's just like a beautiful thing to have that. It really.
All right. Well, then let's wrap it up with one more question. So if anybody who's watching this is thinking about joining Create Your Light, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, if you even feel it, that little bit of pull towards it, to do it. I know we're known for second guessing ourselves. We always find excuses to not do something that's probably better for us, but then we'll go spend the money somewhere else. I understand, pricing wise, oh, I can't do it right now. Just do it. Because a lot of times people have money, and they say they don't. I will tell you that I literally had no money. I was in overdraft. Danielle can attest for this. Racked up credit cards. I mean, I had nothing, and I had a little bit of room on my credit cards, and then actually got a check in the mail, and I was going to give it to my husband for the house, and I was just like, I need this for a program that I really want to do, and he was like, go for it. And like, I went to the bank, I got all the signs from the universe every time, and I made it work. So if you even have that little bit of a pull that you're so stuck, but you need to change your life, and you do this, because this is everything and you're everything. So invest in yourself.
Yes. And everybody, you need to have that feeling about yourself. You have to feel like you are the most worthy. You're the one who, you need to put yourself first every fucking time. You
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
I so much.
I love you too.
Thank you for coming on and doing this with me. We didn't even get to go into all the amazing stuff that you're doing. So tell everybody how they can find you, what you're doing right now. I was planning on wearing my jacket, my Shadow Seekers jacket, but everybody's have to wait for my Instagram post, because I went and did a photo shoot with this jacket.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Oh my God.
I'm waiting for the pictures to come back. I keep bugging the photographer like, Heather, let's go.
Oh, I always hate waiting for pictures, but right now I'm just kind of 333. Woo! Right now I'm just kind of getting my bearings together. I actually, after my Akashic session, they were just like, just be. You don't have to keep doing, stop being such a Capricorn, like stop digging at the shit you planted. It's going to happen. So right now I'm just kind of like getting my programs together that I want to release. But so I will have them coming out probably like in the summer, definitely by Halloween. I want to like drop some cool stuff.
You have to launch it in Halloween.
I definitely, yes, absolutely. But I'm just like making my candles, doing my witchcraft, getting more into that. Just trying to figure out how I want to deliver my shadow work program. But you can follow me on Instagram at jwitgeo333. I am on TikTok also. I need to get better at that. And that's at Philly Hood Witch.
I love
And
that.
I think that's it. But just look out for me because it's coming.
Oh, it's coming. And then the one thing you haven't mentioned that's gonna come, because I won't let you not do it, is she's going to write a book one day about her
Yes.
amazing life, because her stories are just unbelievable. Like
Thank you.
chills every time you hear them. So one day
I actually am going to start that this summer. So
you better.
yeah, probably like next month actually. So yes, look out for my book too.
Hell yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching day 2 of Spotlight on the Shadow Seekers. Jacky, thank you for coming on. I love you. And if you guys have any questions for her, just post them here in this comments thread. She's happy to answer anything, and make sure you give her a follow on all those platforms. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, everybody.
Peace.